Good morning and welcome to St. Paul Sun. My name is Vega and I'm your host. I am honored today to be joined by my guest, Miss Nina. And Nina, how are you this morning?
I'm just good, and thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. We're lucky to have you here. And today we're going to be having a discussion on Nina's life and some of her experience here in St. Paul. Nina, I'm very excited. As we were talking here in the intro, you were telling me about being in St. Paul since about 1951. Wow, that's such a long time ago. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and seeing the city evolve over time?
Right. Well, when I first came to St. Paul in 1951, my mother very much wanted me to go to the university school for high school.
Okay.
Well, I went out there, and actually, I did not see any what I thought were black students. So I did see one female who apparently was biracial and one young man, but they didn't say hello. So I came back home and I said to Mother, I would prefer to go to a neighborhood school. So I enrolled at a local school, Marshall High School. And what was interesting to me is for someone having come from a black community, no one said hello.
Right.
No, and so I was troubled by that. When visiting with my father short after that time, he said, "Well, one of the things you have to understand is most of the black people there are trying to find their way, and there are limited numbers, limited opportunities for them, even in Minnesota." So he said, join every club and organization that is available. So I joined some, and one was very interesting, the Y Teens. So when I went to the meeting, I said, now what is the mission of
The
this
team.
group?
Okay.
And the student said, oh, we come and eat. So I said, fine,
Okay.
let's do that.
Exactly.
But what happened in terms of voting rights here, black people did have the right to vote, but unlike in the place where I was born and partly reared, that was in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah.
But even though black people here in Minnesota had the right, they did not go out in numbers as they should have, and that rather bothered me.
And I mean, during that time, I mean, you see such a political struggle going on, especially in that early time and going into the 60s, obviously. Why do you think there was such a lack of involvement from the black community when it comes to politics in the sense of voting?
Well, one of the problems, I think, was the fact that the majority of black people here were originally from the southern part of the United States,
Absolutely.
where they had not been allowed to take part in political processes. And therefore, they felt that even if they had gone, the voting would not have made a difference. And the other problem was we were not actually as much a part of the system here as we should have been. And so, even though some of the leaders in the black community did urge people to participate and so forth, it just did not happen to the extent that we had hoped.
Well, I mean, now when we look at the St. Paul community, we see it's very diverse, right? We see a lot of African populations here in St. Paul. We also see a huge Asian population from Hmong to Laos to a whole diverse population in that sense. And then we even have a huge Caucasian community. So how do you think over the years this population has, one, come to be? And how it's been watching them work as a cohesive unit? Do you think that St. Paul has thrived from that diversity? And has that changed, since your time in the 50s, which I assume it has?
Well, actually, as I think about it, I think it is good to have a diverse community. I think the influx of people of different cultures working together politically, educationally, socially, economically is a good thing. I have to say, though, I do not see the African American people participating as much in the process as they should. For instance, I was at a recent meeting, a political meeting, where we nominated people to run for office. And there were in that meeting many Caucasian people. There were two black people, that was I was there and another friend of mine, and there were 13 people from Somalia, Africa, and I thought, well, isn't this interesting? Now we were in a predominantly white and black community, but even so, there were many Somalian people who took part in that process. In the community, we did not have many Asian American or Hispanic speaking people, and I looked around, and it was good to see a number of people there, but I thought, where are the African American people? So we still have more work to do.
Well, absolutely. And that was here in St. Paul.
That was in St. Paul.
Awesome. Well, I mean, how do you think then that community gets engaged? Because when we look at that, had to have been the predominant community here for a while when it comes to diversity representation, outside of the mainstream white culture. So how do you think we have come to a point where immigrants are becoming more active than African Americans in the community? Why do you think that paradigm may exist?
Well, as I said before, many of our people, black people, are originally from the South, having been enslaved and having not been accustomed to participating in decisions regarding our communities.
And you think that has lasted from the 50s and 60s all the way until now and still permeates society?
Sadly, I do think so.
Wow.
But I think one of the things that our people can do is we can look to good representatives in politics and in other ways of our lives, and we can look to them and see how they are sacrificing and working for us, and that includes representatives of all culture groups. So we can look to them and say that, gee, if they can do it, we can do it. They are working for us, so the least we can do is go out and show our support by voting. And the other thing that I tell people is right to vote is an equalizer. You don't need a lot of money. Just go and vote, and that can make a difference.
That's powerful. Well, I mean, I think that there's definitely a lot of efforts of late to get more African Americans engaged, and even being that we now have an African American president in the White House, they did bring out a lot more of the African American vote, and we see more and more kids involved in that. Do you think that is a thing that's improving, or do you still feel like there needs to be more effort on that? And then how do we even approach it?
Well, I think we need both. The fact that we have an African American person as the leader of the United States of America should give us a lot of hope, and it should force all of us to encourage and to see that children and other people take advantage of education, take advantage of economic possibilities, and I think that will improve things. And also, I would like to mention the late Paul Wellstone, who was in the Senate of the United States, who voted and worked for all of us, and he refused to take money from PACs,
Right.
and he refused to take large sums of money to sort of equalize things. And I believe that he is and was an example of someone that we can look to in some reason really to get out and vote.
And vote. He was definitely a powerful representative indeed. And just one more question, getting
Sure.
back to your life personally, Nina. When you look at times evolving from the early '50s, obviously when you were first introduced to the world, and now. And like you said, seeing the progress the United States has made, seeing that there's the African American president in the White House, how does this make you feel? How do you, when you look at the climate today, where we have the violence that is still going on, where we just had a man walk into a church and sadly take away lives from people, where we see so much going on, on a global perspective, and we see the dangers, but we also see advancement as well. How do you perceive it, and what have you really taken away from all these years and being able to witness these changes?
In looking at and seeing the tragedy that happened in North Carolina, and when we look at police brutality across the country, and understand, I believe that by and large, the majority of law enforcement people are dedicated, concerned people who are here for our protection and our well-being. However, there are a few who have gotten into the law enforcement business who clearly should not be there. So what I believe is that we need to carefully select people who are to be in positions of power with guns or that kind of thing, and but I do believe that we have made some strides in the education field, in the economic field, but I think it will take an effort of all of us to still work very hard to accomplish goals that we feel for which we are entitled. And in connection with education, I'm sure that you are familiar with the fact that the African American students as a whole are lagging behind. And I think we have to think about the fact that at one time we were enslaved. Many people would say, well, you don't need to go back that far, but we actually do. Because during the times that we were enslaved, we were not to learn how to read or write or be leaders in our communities or in the nation. So in that respect, we are making gains, but we still have a long ways to go. And I have to say that the program that Mr. Cobb is heading up for the summer, this is a great opportunity where children can get some tutoring and can start to get caught up. But we need to continue these kinds of programs.
Absolutely, Miss Nina. Thank you so much for being here. And to our wonderful guests, we thank you so much for watching. This has been the St. Paul Sun with your host, Bay Gay, and our wonderful guest, Miss Nina. Have a wonderful morning and a beautiful sunny day in St. Paul.
And I
Peace.
thank you.